violence, whether motivated by hate, lust, or greed, is just one of the ugly sides of human nature, and is especially tragic when it targets members of our own community. Here's Darrel Johnson to tell us more.
The murder of John Kelso has been joined, unfortunately, by several other instances of violence against members of our community, most notably 2 recent incidents in Boulder. Here to help us explore violence on and within the gay community is Veronica Garcia, Executive Director of the Colorado Anti-Violence Program. Welcome, Veronica.
Thanks for having me, Darrell.
Let's talk a little bit about the incidents up in Boulder that have happened recently that have been so widely reported in the media.
Sure. The first incident that we really saw come out of Boulder recently, received quite a bit of media attention, was the assault of a lesbian woman. It was right at the end of February. There were 2 perpetrators in that assault, and neither of them have been caught yet. We received reports of a more recent incident this last weekend of an assault on 2 gay men by 2 CU students. The 2 perpetrators in that incident actually have been arrested. So that's what we're able to kind of tell with regards to those 2 incidents at this point.
Has the police department response in investigating these crimes been adequate?
Definitely. Boulder Police Department has been really great about acknowledging that, in fact, the 2 incidents were reflective of hate crime. So they've been really great about acknowledging that. We have yet to actually see how the case in which arrests were actually made, we have yet to see how charges will be brought with regards to the legal case there. But Boulder Police Department has been really, really great about acknowledging that hate crimes have occurred in both of those incidents.
While we can't really talk about the specific victims of these crimes because of victim confidentiality, why don't you talk a little bit about the effect of these types of crimes on the larger community?
Definitely. One of the things that we always want to emphasize through the work that we do at the Colorado Anti-Violence Program is the impact that hate crimes have on larger communities. So we definitely recognize that there are individual victims anytime that we talk about an incident of hate violence. But we also think it's really important to point out the impact that hate violence can have on the larger community. Right now, we really hear reports of kind of just very generalized fear and anxiety coming forth from the larger community. We're really particular to make a distinction between random violence and hate violence. What's really important in that distinction is that when we talk about hate violence, we're really talking about a very targeted violence. We're talking about communities that are very targeted based on identities. So it's going to be really different from random violence, and really has an impact in terms of sending a message loud and clear to our community that we're in danger, that we're vulnerable, and we're at risk. We never know when we might be impacted by violence.
I noticed on some statistics that I pulled off of your website from a larger national report on violence statistics that the data that Colorado provided, it actually appeared that incidents had gone down in the reporting period, which was 2005. And that can be created by a lot of anomalies. Can you speak to what some of those factors might have been to change those statistics?
Yeah, one of the things that we always talk about is the dynamic of underreporting. So whenever we look at the numbers that we're actually able to report with regards to hate incidents, we always have to consider the fact that we will never hear about all of the incidents that actually occur. The numbers that we're able to present are always going to be just a baseline to demonstrate that, in fact, we did experience hate violence. But we always have to remember that the numbers that we provide will never be representative of all of the incidents that are actually occurring that are never reported to us.
Even while the numbers of specific incidents reported had dropped, it seemed like the severity of those incidences that were reported and the injuries associated with those incidents had risen dramatically. Is that a trend that seems to be nationwide as well as just here in Colorado?
Definitely. We saw several programs in 2005 that actually reported a drop in numbers of incidents, but along with that also reported an increase in the severity of incidents and the brutality of incidents, really. We also saw an increase in the number of injuries that victims experienced as a result of assaults in 2005.
And you also mentioned a troubling trend that it seemed like instead of individual attacks that a lot of the perpetrators were now acting in groups. Is that
right. We also saw an increase in 2005 of the number of perpetrators involved in each incident. So that's definitely a concerning trend.
And do you think that the political climate that comes across from our political leaders has a lot to do with the violence on the community?
Most definitely. Over the years that we've been doing the work that we do at the Colorado Anti-Violence Program, we've definitely seen a correlation between the social and political environment and the impact of violence against our communities. We really talk about 2004 and 2005 generally being pretty quiet years when we're talking about larger social and political environments. And when we look at 2006, we're just now starting to compile data on 2006, and that data will be released in a report that is set to come out at the end of April. But we're looking at numbers for 2006, and then looking at the data that we've collected, we're really seeing, again, an increase in numbers from 2005 to 2006, and we definitely are able to make some tie-ins to some of the political climate that we had going on in Colorado last year when we think about the issues that were coming up on the ballot during elections in 2006.
Do you think the more sympathetic, Democratic-controlled legislative houses in both the state legislature and the national political scene will have any impact on hate crimes legislation?
That's definitely our hope. There's an important piece of legislation that we see coming through right now in Colorado. We're really closely following ENDA, the Employment Non-Discrimination legislation, and we're really hoping that that will potentially contribute to a decrease in hate crimes. You know, anytime that a government can actually send a message to larger community by passing legislation that actually speaks to civil rights for our community, that's going to be really helpful. Our hope is that that sends a loud and clear message that we are supported, that we are deserving of civil rights. And so we definitely hope to see some associated trends there.
While we've been discussing mostly violence on our community from outside of our community, we should touch briefly on, there is also the topic of violence from within our own community, domestic violence within our own community. And the Colorado Anti-Violence Program is also there to help in that area as well. So speak a little bit about how you're there to help in that area.
So we work on both issues of hate violence and domestic violence. Domestic violence is an issue that's going to be really important for us to recognize, because we find that largely within LGBTQ communities there isn't really a lot of talk about domestic violence and the way that domestic violence impacts our communities and our intimate relationships. When we talk about the prevalence of domestic violence within our communities, we see some similarities with regards to the ways that domestic violence is experienced in straight relationships. So it's definitely an important issue. It's an issue that impacts our community, and it's an issue that we definitely need to be talking more about within our community.
So I think we can probably agree that the violence from without of our community is generated by lack of education. So if people just are more educated about what's really going on and not so scared, you know, homophobia is bred from fear. So I think that's what we really have to be most careful of. So before we go, I want to make sure our viewers know how to contact the Colorado Anti-Violence Program. Can you give us some information on how we can specifically get a hold of your organization? Certainly.
We have a 24-hour toll-free crisis hotline, and that's probably the most ideal way to reach us. That phone number is 888-557-4441, and again, that is a toll-free 24-hour crisis hotline. And so I would definitely encourage anyone who has any questions about violence against and within our communities, give us a call.
Terrific. If you have been a victim or know someone who has and needs help, please contact Colorado Anti-Violence Program. I want to thank Veronica Garcia so much for coming in and talking about this topic with us.
Definitely. Thanks for having me, Darrel.
Thank you.